PL SQL because it is portable and it gives us the high performance for transaction processing. Now, when you are working with this PLSQL, it provides built-in, interpreted, and OS-independent programming environment. Okay, for that purpose, mainly we are following. That is it. The most important point is that is it gives us the high performance for transaction processing. For that purpose, we are going for PLSQL. And why we are going for PLSQL again? That is, it is built-in, interpreted, and OS-independent programming environment. It provides us, so for that purpose, we are mainly preferring PLSQL. And last point is that is PLSQL can also directly be called from the command line. So when we are working with PLSQL, you can also call PLSQL with the command line. And for that purpose, we are using the command line that is SQL star plus interface. With the help of this, you can execute the commands with the help of PLSQL. Now, these are the features that are associated with PLSQL. So, PLSQL is tightly integrated with SQL. So, you can say that SQL, PLSQL is an extension of your SQL. Then it offers the extensive error checking. So, error checking facility is also available. It offers the numerous data types. So, numerous data types is also available over here. It offers the variety of programming language. It supports the structured programming through functions and procedure. Now, this is very important point. That is when you are working with PL and SQL, it will support the structured programming. So when you are working with the structured programming, we are mainly following the concept of functions and procedures. So this part or this feature is available in your PL SQL. Again, the most important point is that it supports the object-oriented programming. And last one is support the development of web application and server pages. So when you want to work on the web development or when you want to create a server pages, you can also use a PLSQL. So these are the important features that are associated with your PLSQL. Now, what is the difference between your SQL and PLSQL? This is very important point. Now we learn about SQL. That is when we are working with SQL, we are using we are performing the different operations like insert, update, delete. All this code operation we are performing with the help of SQL. But what is the difference between your PL and SQL and PLSQL? So PLSQL is a single query that are performing DDL and DML operations. So you know that which type of operations we are performing under DML, which type of operations we are performing under DDL. So SQL is a single query that are used to perform the DML and DDL operation. Then PLSQL is a block of code that are used to write the entire program blocks, procedure and function. Now, when you are working with the PLSQL, at that time it is necessary to write down the block of code whenever you want to execute the functions and procedure. Okay. Now, when you are working with SQL, it is declarative that defines what need to be done. Now, related to SQL, this statement is important that SQL always defines us what needs to be done rather than how things need to be done. Okay, so we are not focusing on SQL, that is how things need to be done. But in PLSQL, we are focusing on how things need to be done. Okay, in SQL we are focusing what needs to be done, but in PLSQL we are focusing on how things needs to be done. This is the basic difference between your SQL and the PLSQL. Now, when you are working with the SQL, you know that every time when we are working with SQL, it execute a single statement. Okay, it always execute a single statement. But when we are working with the PLSQL, it execute the whole block. When you are working with PLSQL, it is executing the whole block. It mainly used to manipulate the data. So when you are working with the SQL, it mainly manipulate the data. Means with the help of insertion, update, delete operation, we are trying to manipulate our data. But in PLSQL, we are not trying to create any application. We are just trying to manipulate the data. But with the help of SQL, we are not trying to create any application. We are just trying to the data that are available with us. We are just trying to manipulate that particular data. But in PLSQL, we are mainly used, or this PLSQL mainly used to create applications. Okay. Now it cannot contain PLSQL code in it. Now, when you are working with SQL, we are not putting a PLSQL, or it is not possible in SQL to put a PLSQL code. But In PLSQL, it is extension of SQL. You know that PLSQL is extension of SQL, so you can put a SQL commands in your PLSQL. So these are the basic difference. So in short, that is SQL mainly get used to manipulate the data, and PLSQL mainly get used for creating a application. Whenever we want to manipulate the data, we are just executing a command in a single line. But whenever we want to create any application, it is necessary to write down a block of code. Okay. So in SQL, we can't use the block of code, but in PLSQL, we can use the concept of SQL also because it is extension of your SQL. So these are the basic difference between PLSQL and SQL. So this question always get asked in your oral exam. That is, what is the basic difference between your SQL and the PLSQL? So these are the important difference that are available within your SQL and PLSQL. The next one is the first part that are available in your PLSQL, that what exactly the procedure means, what exactly the function means, what exactly the cursor means, and what exactly the trigger means. So first of all, we are going for the part of your procedure, that what exactly the procedure, what is the syntax of procedure, how exactly this procedure will get executed. Okay. जर तुमचं कोणाचं झालेलं असेल आधी, anybody can tell me that what exactly the procedure means. Can anybody tell that what exactly the procedure means in PLSQL? तुमचं हे झालंय का हो किंवा नाही तेवढं सांग. हॅलो.
No.
कर्सर ट्रिगरचा कन्सेप्ट झालाय. हॅलो. अरे बाळांनो, प्रोसिजर, फंक्शन, कर्सर आणि ट्रिगर हे कन्सेप्ट तुमचे डीबीएमएस मध्ये झालेत का प्रिव्हियसली जेव्हा तुम्ही सेकंड इयरला होतात? हॅलो. आवाज येतोय का रे माझा?
झालंय मॅम. झालंय
झा-
मॅम.
झालंय, मग शिकू की नको? हॅलो.
मॅम परत एकदा घ्या.
ओके. So when we are working with the PLSQL procedure, it is a simple procedure in PLSQL block which perform one or more tasks. Okay. So when we are working with the procedure, how to write a procedure? So we are creating a block of code for creating a procedure. So when we are working with this procedure, at that time, in procedure, we are using, it contains header and body part. Okay. So what exactly the header means? So here, header is nothing but the header contains the name of the procedure and the parameters or variables that are passed within the procedure. So when you are working with this part, that is header contains the name of the procedure and the parameter or variable that are passed to the procedure. Now again we are using the second part, we called it as a body. So in body contains the declaration section, execution section, exception section, similar to general PL SQL block. Okay. Now we are going to see with one example, that is how exactly the procedure will get created and how exactly it will get executed. So this is the structure of your PL SQL block. So whenever you want to create a PL SQL block, okay, so at that time, first of all, we are having a declaration section with us. We are having a begin section with us. We are having the exception section with us, and we are having end section. Okay. So this is the format. In this format, we have to write down the block of code of PLSQL. Okay. Now, when we want to create a procedure, at that time, this is the syntax we are following. Okay. So what is the syntax? That is, here you have to write down create or replace procedure and procedure name. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of this replace? Okay. Now here create, and after that you have to write down procedure and procedure name. Okay. Suppose you create a procedure like this, that is this format, that is create procedure and procedure name. Suppose I want to create a procedure that is PREC. Okay, so I have write down here that is create procedure PREC. Okay, but if the replace statement is not available, then I can't rename that particular name of that procedure. But if here I mention that is create or replace procedure, I can change the name of my procedure at any time. Okay, So at that time, at the time of creation of the procedure,